Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This time I have Jason Gerber. So Jason, you have been one of the OGs in the group. And for those of you who are not enrolled in the program, Jason has made himself into somewhat like a sensei status, for like a better word, in the community. And so we're going to go very, very deep into his story, but also his learning lessons and his best advice that he can give a lot of you as well, because I think Jason's story is a unique one because he went through a lot of ups and downs. And I think you'll see this in an interview where he actually wanted to give up in the middle. He had every reason to give up, but because he didn't and kept with the processes, he was very shocked as to how much his partner's behavior can and do change as well. So I guess, Jason, let's paint that picture for the audience here. When you joined the program, what was your relationship like for you?
I think I was just talking to Jason a little bit ago. I think I joined 1 year ago, probably this week. And at that time, the relationship was done. It was gone. I was still semi living at home, but not really. And my wife was she hated my guts. She absolutely hated me. I made some bad decisions that affected our family. And so it was constant chaos. You know, when I seen her, she reminded me just how much she hated me and wasn't in the relationship. And my state of mind was
let's pause there, because I do remember that very distinctly, which is how much your partner told you and made you know every single day that how much she was so angry at you, how much she hated you, how much there was no hope. I mean, what were some examples of the things she was saying and doing that just kept reminding you of this? And, you know, we don't mean to belittle her or say bad things about her. We're just, feel free to say this however you want.
Yeah, no, it's, and again, you know, I wouldn't want to do things to portray her like that. She was hurt. She was very upset. And I tended to do things throughout my life and relationships and whatnot, where I just made my partner hate me and through my actions, through my lack of showing that I care. And same thing happened to her, where she would literally tell me she hates me. She can't stand to see me. She wants me out of her life, you know, and she would say, you know, things like, you know, gosh, man, I mean, it was pretty descriptive in the things she would say, you know, as far as how I ruined her life and what she did to me, how much better she can do than me, how her family hates me, how I'm no good for anybody around me. So it was a lot of that.
Did you do? What did you do that caused her to feel this visceral feeling towards you?
The biggest thing was, you know, for the 6 or 7 years that we were together, you know, I never really appreciated her. I never really paid much attention to her needs. And I was probably typical to most males where, you know, I'm a fixer, I'm a doer, I'm providing, I'm doing all these things, but there's no emotional connection. I'm thinking like, hey, you wanted a home, I'm going to give you a home, and you want this. And those are all the cherries on top. And what she wanted was some of the things that I've learned over the past year and discovering more. You know, she wanted to feel loved. She wanted to feel important. She wanted to know that she can communicate. I don't have to fix it. Like I can just let her fix it.
Yeah, so it's like the difference between like a caveman value versus a modern man value. And I think usually when women are in a relationship where their men can only give them like a caveman type of value, where let me bring home the food, let me bring home the resources, let me take care of the house, let me take care of you, let me buy you a house, whatever it is. What usually happens is whenever they complain and say, I'm unhappy, you will say, what do you got to be unhappy about? You have everything we want. We have money, we have the business, we have freedom, whatever it is. And when you say that, then your partner goes, oh, forget it. I will never be happy here. And I think that makes things even worse. Is that kind of what you were alluding to as well?
100%. It was constantly worse. And every time she said it, I was like, okay, what does she need? Maybe you need a vacation. You need this. And she, you know, really, she just wanted to be heard. She wanted to be understood on a deeper level. And I was no good at that. No good. And what it did is it created this frustration within me that I could do nothing right. And no matter what I did, and I wasn't doing anything right, but it frustrated me so bad that she would say that, I would react. She would react. I would react. And it's back that whole negative loop.
Yeah, the negative loop. Yeah, we'll get into that. But I mean, just to paint the audience a picture here too, this is intense and visceral reactions, right? This is stonewalling to the max. This is gaslighting to the max. This is saying whatever toxic words and cuss words and whatever it is to the max. This is attacking you on the character level. And by every definition of what people like to place labels on, this is abuse 100%. And I think you even mentioned this yourself in the middle, to be like, I've never met someone so toxic and so abusive like my wife before. Right.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's the way I felt. And I just thought she was an abusive person. And honestly, I didn't even know that all that stuff was abuse until I just started learning more about relationships and psychology and all kinds of stuff. And then it's like, well, that's abuse. But then you're like, it's not abuse, it's opportunities to
we'll dive deep into that a little bit. So at one point also, I think she actually placed the divorce papers that she filled out on your desk. Of course, she took off the wedding ring. Was that accurate? Was there more to that?
No, she did. She took off the wedding ring a little over a year ago, took it off. She was going through the whole divorce process. She did it out more than once. She fell out and somehow I kind of navigated through it enough for it to kind of be put to bed, and it was on my desk. And then we talked about that before, where I just came home and it was gone, it disappeared. And that actually happened a few times. So, and go ahead, Geoffrey, I'm sorry.
No worries. Yeah. I remember it happening a few times. Now, your story has kind of an M shape to it, where it was like that in the beginning, and then it got better. So how soon after you joined the program did you start seeing things were changing quite quickly in your relationship?
So it actually happened a week or two before I joined, and that's a big reason I joined. Is you had this stuff online, and I can't remember specifically that a year ago, but I remember watching it and then having a conversation with her, and I was like, oh man, that's interesting. And then so I joined, I think a week later. So I think it was about this time last year, because my anniversary is next week. And so it was right then. And so I noticed in the first week, like it's
fast.
It was noticeable, like the way that I wasn't communicating better, but I was shutting up and listening and discovering better.
Just the simple act of listening. Yeah. But because you were changing, the way I see it, the first change you had was very tactical, right? It was like, let me just understand how to appear like I've changed, but you haven't really changed internally yet.
No.
And so we're going to talk about this too, where you're tethered. And then that led to you doing a lot of toxic things, which seems justified because, when you haven't made your internal shift yet, whatever you do, the toxic things you do, you're going to find ways to justify it. And that's the breakdown. And I remember I got a message from you one day, and you said, I'm giving up on this relationship. I've never seen anyone so toxic like my wife. And, we can post it somewhere in this video right here, but you gave me that message and I told you, no, you're blaming your partner's character. You are having a lack of internal shifts. You're having a lot of mind viruses, is the term that we use, as toxic thoughts. And you came back. You came back to the processes, and that was kind of your second birth, I guess, your revival in a way. And that was when you actually dug deep into the internal processes. And that's when, unlike the first time, your results were very temporary. Yeah, you got good results, but that went down really, really quickly. And in our program, we call that failure success. When you're getting your outcome, but you have no idea how to recreate it every single day, you're going to go down. Yeah. And the second time, you got what we call successful success, where you get your outcome, but you know how to recreate that, how to replicate that every single day, because it's like an exact science to you. So from that point, from the beginning where she was saying all kinds of toxic things to you, stonewalling, gaslighting, whatever, paint us a picture. What is your journey like? What is your relationship like now?
So right now, that stuff doesn't come up nearly as much. I mean, maybe I mean, right now things are moving great. So I'm sure I'll see it again in a month from now, but it's not going to be, I hate you. It's, this past week, she was upset. She's like, hey, since I've committed to go forward, I feel like you're not showing the love that I expect and all these things. And so I think she still has that bias within her about who I was, because I don't believe that that's the case, but she's scared still. And so she's still, any little thing, be like, hey, am I making a mistake here? Is this going on? But right now, like even that, like we can communicate through it. It might be something I come back to. It might be something that I won't address at the moment, but we can talk about it, and we can say, okay, what brought us here? What brought those feelings up? And I can let her express, what is it that caused that? Well, this week really wasn't as much about me. It was about her. She's taken on a new career. She's doing some things with our business and flipping homes. And so she went through this whole real estate process, and she's doing, all these different things, and it's creating anxieties within her, and she needs that support. And she needs me to be there for her, and she didn't feel like I was there for her. And also she took, rather than giving her support, there were things coming up at home that she felt like I was picking and doing various things that, really it was a kind of combination of things. But the key is, a year ago, that would have started this whole massive argument and fight that circles back to 10 other things that has nothing to do with it. Now we stay focused on it, work through it, and within hours, or worst case by the next day, like we're back on track. We're talking about our goals. We're talking about how we're going to get there.
Yeah. And I think people listening to this may not understand just how important this milestone is. Because, so first of all, and I always have to say this every time I do an interview, if you look at the way other coaches market their product, their business, they always mark the moment where you reconcile, like it's like an event. We reconciled. The reality is never like that. It's never that climactic like that. It's never that definite. It's never that black and white, a 1 or 0 binary thing. It's a very gradual process. And so when all these coaches say, oh, we boast like a certain success rate, I call BS on that, because how do you even measure that? How do you even measure such a gray area? This is not quantitative. Second thing, people always think that a great relationship is something that's, you have no problems. You have no issues whatsoever. And what we learned in the program is, no. If you are looking for a relationship with no issues, go have a relationship with a robot.
Yeah.
You are having a relationship with a human. There's entropy, there's problems, people have feelings, people have past traumas. What's crucial here is that when the traumas come in, when the conflicts come in, they don't become negatives, they become opportunities, they become positives. They become moments when you can heal and she can heal. That's how you build a great relationship. That's how you get a great relationship, right?
Yeah, and I think that you said a lot of things there that make a ton of sense to me now, where there is no moment where it just flips, because even this week when that happened, I'm still a work in progress, and I still felt some of that anxiety try to creep in, but I've done it so much that the practice kind of paid off. It's kind of like, okay, let's regroup, let's work through the frameworks, let's figure this out. But still, I have that feeling within me, like, is this the last, could this be the last time or whatever? And so, like you talked about, even though things are good, every day I still wake up and I'm like, how can I make my relationship better? Because I know entropy can set in. I know that anything can happen at any moment. So my focus every day, still every morning, is that thought: what can I do today to make my relationship better? And knowing that it's still going to take 6 months or 3 months or a year, no matter what I do today, for her to catch up to. So I've recognized and I've appreciated that to another level. Like, it doesn't stop. And
it doesn't stop.
She needs me to keep going.
Yeah. Let me write some things down here, because I want to discuss this really in depth, because this is a crucial distinction I think many people miss, which is that distinction of what does a good relationship actually look like, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. So you guys are in the business together again. If I understand you correctly, you're planning a life together. So, problems still occur.
Yeah.
Just like my relationship, problems still occur, but problems become opportunities. And you are, in every definition of the word, you are a unit. You're planning a life together, you're working together, you're living together, you are dreaming together. I mean, you're communicating. This is a relationship. This is a romantic relationship now. So let's go down into, again, that topic of what a good relationship looks like, because I think that's the biggest misconception I think people have. So let me start with kind of a story about mine, right? To this day, my partner still brings up to me things I do wrong sometimes. Sometimes I don't say the smartest things always, right? Just people in general.
Me too.
And sometimes there's conflicts that we experience that are created by things outside the relationship. Maybe something happened with her work. Maybe something happened with her parents, whatever it is. Now, in the past, I used to take pride whenever my partner never talks to me about her problems, because I think, well, if she doesn't talk to me about her problems, she's happy, she's saying great things about the relationship, I must be doing a great job. But the reality is, usually things are happening, bad things are happening. She's just not telling you about it. And I think a lot of what I went through a long time ago, and what you went through, was that you lived in this la la land of, oh, I'm not, ignorance is bliss, or no news is good news kind of mentality. And you realize that's very far from the truth, because entropy is a part of life. And so the contrasting viewpoint now is that, whenever she brings up to me things to me, let's say at midnight before we go to bed, and she just talks about what I did wrong, whatever it is, I love that. I embrace those moments, because that means that there is enough safety in the relationship to where she can tell me about it. And I can continue to condition her to think, whenever problems come up, whenever I make a mistake, you don't need to feel angry about that, because you can just talk to me about that. So I'm sure that change has been massive for you too. So tell me your philosophies here. Tell me your thinking here.
It has. And the thing is, like, she's not a great communicator, and neither am I. That's part of this whole process and journey. Like you talked about a little bit, it rubs off on her. She wants to be better because she sees better in me. But she's not a great communicator. But the thing is, I can pick up on those cues now. Like, kind of what started this past week was I just noticed the difference in her, and I just noticed something's going on. So it's a matter of utilizing the way we communicate now to kind of let her express it. And so, and each time she does, it doesn't blow up, because there is no reaction other than a positive reaction. So she's able to get it off her chest, feel comfortable. And so, I recognize in her that, she's got that same ability we talked to, like, hey, you can talk to me about this stuff. You don't have to bottle it up. You don't have to be scared, because at this point, I'm open to anything. I'm open to anything that's on your mind, or any expression. Like, I can take it.
Yeah. And it's funny, whenever I look at my own relationship too, I think as humans, we've been trained to say, if, let's say, your partner does something that annoys you, instantly your thinking is to get angry. And you not only get angry about the thing you're angry about, what they did, but you're also angry about, because you secretly think in your head, if I bring this up to my partner, I bet you she'll respond like this. I bet you she'll say that. I bet you she'll justify themselves. And so now you're angry about the event, and then you're angry on the interpretation of what you imagine what would happen if you bring up the event, right? Now, what happens if you create safety is remove that top layer. Yeah. So you don't overcomplicate. You don't make a problem that's complicated into something more complicated. And so now it's funny, whenever my partner brings up something, you can tell she's angry, very angry, because she has this multiple layers of the chain of bad interpretations. But then once I listen, once I paraphrase it to her, and I fully understand the thing behind the thing, the forest of what she's saying, her face just instantly changes. Yeah. It's like, oh, that wasn't that bad. Oh, that actually felt pretty good. And then from there, you slowly recondition your partner to where the next time I do something wrong, they don't even create those chain reactions in their head. They just talk to me very calmly. That's the cycle. So while a lot of people, I think their cycle is they see their partner bringing up conflicts as a threat, as a bad thing. And so they create this condition, this culture in the relationship where their partner now knows that if they bring up the tough conflict, you will respond badly. They will know that, they will assume that. And when that assumption is not expressed, it's all in their heads. That's what it means when we say the emotions fester, because now it's the problem and then another problem on top of that where they think, I can't even talk about the problem. It's never ending.
Yeah. And I think that still lives in her to a certain degree, because again, you know, I'm a little bit older, and I've got 40 some years of bad habits. And so, you know, they're hard to break. You know, I've been doing this for a year, and it's not something that just changes. And that's why I'm working really hard still every day because I know, like, okay, we might be 25, 30, 40, 50% there, but that's still in her mind. Like, she can't express to me 100% yet, because we're not there yet. Because even over this time, you know, there's been a dozen times when I've reacted bad, probably more than that. And so, while it's not every time, where it used to be every time, no matter what it was that came up a year ago, it did not matter. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it just didn't matter. Whatever came up was going to lead to an explosive argument. And now it's like, it probably won't, but I'm not 100% certain just yet. And I think she feels that, and I still feel a little bit about that, but it's exciting because we're working on this together, you know, and we're creating something that neither one of us ever had.
Yeah. But the important part here is, like you said in your recent post too, you know, if you compare yourself, like literally put an old version of yourself next to now, I mean, that difference is night and day. Like you are literally in the 1% already. And so when you say the words, for example, like, oh, I'm not perfect yet. You know, if you compare yourself to another average male, you would be the epitome of perfection. But in the program, we always tell you, like, no, never, never, never. Always never settle for good. Always get to great. Because people always underestimate, again, the level of consistency and the level of perfection that is required to create radical amounts of safety, especially when you have destroyed it. For me, for example, Jason, like when I really became perfect in my processes, it took my partner about 2 to 3 years to really understand how to recondition her mind, because I've been treating her so badly for so long in such a subconscious way. And that has really sunk in deep in her psyche. And you have been married longer than I have, much longer. So I can't imagine the programming, the trauma your partner must have had, you know? So give her time. But again, the important part again is the process leads to the outcome. A perfect process leads to a perfect outcome. And it's just a matter of time. It's a matter of when, not really if.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, because I was waiting on that light switch for a long time. I was just waiting on it. Like, this relationship revival, this is going to create that light switch. And it took a long time to really recognize that it's gradual. But I hope that I always continue to feel like I'm 50% there, because that's always going to make me want to just continue improving. And I agree. Like, when you talk about, when you see the other men around you, it's night and day. Like, I see Geoffrey over here and Jason over here and some of the other guys over here, and then I see everybody else's red flags just shooting up, you know, everywhere around us, and it almost makes you cringe, because you're like, I used to be that guy. Yeah. I could so easily be that guy, you know, and if I could just say one thing to this person, like, so they could get it, and so they would understand, like, how much better could so many people be. But you see that, you know, my wife, you know, when this first started, you know, she was talking to an old friend of hers who I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if it was a friend. I didn't know it was a relationship. I didn't know if he was trying, she was trying, etc. But I would overhear these things, and I'm like, well, I'm not even concerned, because I see his red flags going up everywhere. So all I have to do is be consistent, and I have a better shot than this guy, you know.
Yeah.
in any situation. So then you start gaining that confidence. Well, even if it's not my wife, who I hope it is, there's not a lot of guys that's going to compete with the way I can live out a relationship at this point in time.
Yeah. The difference though is, which brings us to the second point, is that what we call the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? It's for the audience listening to this, if you don't know what it is, look it up. Just look up Dunning-Kruger effect on YouTube, and you'll understand what this is. But it's the curve that shows basically that if you see a curve, the curve always goes kind of like this, of the curve of mastery, where the people who are the least competent usually think they're the best, the most competent, because they don't know enough about the subject, about the topic, to criticize themselves, to see their flaws. And so I think a lot of men, when they start the program, they're here, where they think to themselves, I'm not that bad. I'm pretty good. But once you take the program and you see, like you said, just the level that these guys are playing at, the other people are playing at, you instantly get brought down to where, oh my gosh, there's so much I don't know. And so as you become aware of how much you don't know, you start to humble down and say, I'm not that great. And I think people carry that mindset for a couple of years, usually in the program, until they get to a point where they are actually great. They have actually reasons to believe they're great. And I think that's where you are going through. You are kind of going through that learning cycle where you're realizing, oh my gosh, there's so much I don't know. And that's a good thing.
Even right now, I just posted this morning that I'm starting version 3 because I recognize, and like you talked about, I'm probably here somewhere, you know, but I recognize that you can be here. And I recognize that it's not just about my wife, it's about everybody else around me. It's about, who do I want to be? You know, what do I want my children to remember, and my friends to remember, and my wife to remember? Like, you know, I'm not great in all these ways, but I'm a great person for them. And how do you become that? Well, you learn some of this stuff, and you continue to grow. You recognize you got to be honest with yourself, because I thought all these past relationships, they hated me because of their own problems. It had nothing to do with me. Like you just talked about it. Couldn't possibly be me. You know, they're just crazy. They didn't recognize what's here. Well, that's not the truth. It absolutely 100% was me, and the same thing in my marriage. So
again,
that's interesting the way you point that out.
You only, but people only feel that on the beginning of the program. Like you see sometimes these new members introducing themselves, and when they introduce themselves, they always kind of tell themselves like, I've been changing, and I've not been bad. I've been doing pretty well, but my partner is very toxic, you know. And the only way they can say that is if you don't recognize just how much you lack. So people come into the program thinking like, I can probably evolve from level 1 to level 3. They don't realize, no. Level 3 is still beginner stages. Like there's a level 50 right here. But I did want to dive into also and stress this notion of, I mean, your story is the epitome of proving to people that your partner's behaviors can and do change when you change yours. And we talk about that feedback loop again, and the importance of that feedback loop. And that's a crucial understanding. It's that when you talk about, I'm not doing this for her, I'm doing this for me. It's the admission also that when I change my behavior, she will change hers too. Because what usually happens, and what a lot of people don't realize too, is you are, whether you realize it or not, whether it's going uphill or downhill, we don't know, but your behavior is already affecting your partners. You mentioned in the beginning of the interview, you said your partner would do something toxic, then you would do something toxic back. Then because you do something toxic, your partner does something toxic back, and it becomes this really degrading conversation really fast. Right there, what you did affected the whole relationship, affected what she did. So what if we could just change that to say, well, what if we can respond to toxic with positivity, plant the right seeds? Imagine if you multiply that for every single conversation, every single thought, every single moment in your relationship, how much things can change and do change. So talk to the audience here about contrast your partner's behavior to when you were in the throes of your problems to now. I mean, do you see a lot of the toxic behavior still, or is it the same
No,
level
and
even?
you know, the first thing, my wife isn't toxic. I made my wife do things that I perceived as toxic. My wife is sweet. She's a kind person.
Mm,
She's a caring person. When I watch her with other people she just meets or friends or anything, like she brings something great out. And you know, when you learn about entropy and you learn about these things and you learn about your own behaviors and taking those securities away and you learn how entropy works, you know, and how it just chips away and all these things, you know, it created something in her that she couldn't get past because she looked at me as this person that brought this out in her, this person who couldn't love her, couldn't do these things. And it was so bad, it went on so many years that it was normal. So when I talk about, you know, her being doing these toxic things, you know, and her being mad and just spitting fire at me and a lot of words I probably wouldn't even want to repeat on here. You know, I understand why, but I also remember on a hike in particular where she told me, she's like, I didn't want to say those things to you anymore because I feel a little bit, you're not looking anymore. And so it makes her feel a little bit uncomfortable now to
yeah,
even do those things. So
yeah,
how did it, you know, that's rubbing off on her because in the past when she would say something, I would react that way. And then she'd react that way. And then when I stopped doing it, you know, she just didn't want to do it anymore. So that's one of the more
yeah,
positive things I've seen where her not even knowing what the negative and positive loops are, but now she's working to create it herself. Like when I have a problem, I can see her looking at me in ways I used to look at her where it was almost like robotic. But it's like you know, I knew through the course that I had to get comfortable doing these things and create this new version of me. But it felt robotic. It felt like she's probably seeing this guy who's trying this technique that I just learned. I see her kind of doing the same thing, but I see it becoming more and more natural because she's also seeing the benefit, not even through the teachings, but just through the experience and
yeah,
understanding what that can do for our relationship. Like, don't react, just listen, discover. What do you mean by that? And so she's been doing that a lot more recently, and it kind of catches me off guard. And I feel my own face melt. Like I used to see her face melt, and I'm like, you practicing these techniques? Have you been talking to Geoffrey and learning some things here? You know?
yeah. So just to summarize here, not only did the toxic behaviors stop,
Yeah.
she's actually emulating a lot of the principles and the methods and the ways of communicating, the ways of thinking that we teach in the program as well. And it's not like you were teaching her that. She just picked up from the things you were doing because it is universally, it just works. Like if you want to connect on an emotional level with anyone, whether that's a colleague or coworker, a family, grandpa, grandma, children, your partner, the same principles apply. We're all humans, you know. But for to distinguish this properly for the audience who are watching here, this is really, you know, when we talk about when you change your behavior, your partner's behaviors can change too. We're talking really about, do you have this paradigm in your life where you blame behavior to character or behavior to environments? Because what you're saying, if you blame, you know, there's so many videos out there on YouTube and on Google, whatever it is, about they just love to label people. You have personality tests that labels people's character. You have videos that say, this is the signs of a narcissist. You have videos that say, this is your attachment style. And they disguise themselves as good advice because it's said by clinical psychologists. But what people don't realize is it doesn't get more toxic than that. Like it really doesn't get more toxic than that. And we also have to understand that, you know, clinical psychologists, they're very good at diagnosing, often not so good at treating. And so they will diagnose and they will tell you like, this is the signs of a narcissist. But then if you ask them like, what do you do about it? They got nothing. They got nothing to say about that. And so it creates this culture in this world today where if you put any other man in your position back then, and your partner did the same things she did to you, I would bet 99.99999% of men would say she's a narcissist, she's toxic, she's a stonewaller, she has this attachment style, she's not worth it, I need to leave. And you fell into that even. I mean, this
Yeah. Yeah.
mentality is
I did.
so ingrained in our society. But what's interesting is now, when you start to change your own behavior, you would have made a decision that you would have regretted so much, because you're gonna lose what you have now.
Yeah. It's a
Um,
lot.
that's a crucial distinction, and it's a lot of people listening to this will say, no, but not my partner. My partner is toxic. You don't get it. The whole point we're saying is Jason was one who literally was so convinced, no, it's my partner. I can't take this anymore. I'm literally going to take this and get a new relationship. But when we say your behavior can change your partner's behavior, don't underestimate just what we mean by that.
Yeah, I think that, if people could just watch and see what it was like I can't even put it in words. Like, I can't even express the feelings I felt, the words that were being said, just the hate, the anger for so many years towards me. And all I thought was, this is her problem. You were raised this way, you were born this way, you're always going to be this way. Never did I think that, this was an environment. This isn't character. But now I get it. And like, you challenged me where everybody else is telling me, run, leave. Why do you do it? This is never going to change. Well, then I would have to accept that I could never change, that I can never do something different. So if I can change, then certainly she can change. And maybe she doesn't even have to change. Maybe it's just the way that I react changes. And I've been through therapy before I've seen this. And they told us to separate. They told us not to be together. They never gave us any sort of practices or principles or anything to say, well, do this, try this. Instead, it's like, no, you just need to be honest with each other and
you're not the right fit.
don't stay together with your kids. If that's the only reason, when they weren't listening, like, no, we love each other or we wouldn't be here now.
Yeah.
It's not
like,
just because we're children.
Yeah. And I can be so confident in my statement to say, when I told you that day, I was like, no, you got this wrong. This is not a character problem. This is an environment problem. You change the environment. I'm telling you, in 6 months' time, you're going to be shocked. And I was right. And I've never been wrong, Jason. I've never, ever been wrong. And so the funny realization I also had too was, if let's say today, let's say you are, for those who are listening, you are in a bad relationship right now and your partner's doing toxic things. And if you choose to decide that this is a character problem, you're saying to yourself, she is toxic. She is toxic. That's her character. You just created for yourself a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because the way you talk, the way you speak, the way you treat her, it'll assume that she can't change.
Yeah.
She will see that, she will feel that, and she won't change. And then when she doesn't change, you will live the rest of your life thinking, I told you, I knew it, she can't change. Never knowing that if you just simply flip the switch in your mind for just a couple of months, your life could have taken this other way different path.
Yeah.
And most people live their life. They're on their deathbed and they will never know what they missed because of this small switch in thinking or the failure to make this switch in thinking. And that's the switch in thinking that I'm glad I made, because if not, like, I love my relationship, Jason, right now. And we're getting married in 2 years, actually.
Nice.
And if I didn't make that switch, my gosh,
Yeah.
I often think about there's no other relationship I would rather have than this one.
Well, and I think if a lot of what you say resonates within me, because it feels very similar. And I think you probably agree that you'd probably be in the same exact relationship. You probably just leave this one and think that, I'll meet that next great person, and it's got to be something there that's going to click. There's that soulmate out there, when it honestly, like, it's just going to be the same thing. You're going to meet, entropy is going to start setting in immediately. You're just going to go downhill. And they're going to be right back in that same spot eventually. It might take a little bit longer because maybe you grew up, maybe you're a little bit more mature, but you're going to end up in that same spot. And I agree. I look forward to being that relationship that's even stronger with my wife. if that's the way it works out. But I think, I just look forward to, continuing to grow and learn and to be able to create more securities, and the admiration that I feel for her, like you talked about in the program. That's why I love my wife.
Yeah.
It was so different, the reasons I loved my wife before. I was attracted to her. We have kids, we have these things, but now I truly admire my wife. Like, and our goals are aligning, and with that admiration, that every morning I wake up and I think about, I go through the morning playbook every single morning. And I look about it, and I think I got 10 pages now of why I admire my wife. And I read it, and I might only read 5 pages or 6 or 7. I might read all 10 of them. I might print it out, and I might give her a copy, and I might read it to her. But it's true, all those things, and now it's just a different feeling. Like, why do I want to make these changes? Because I admire my wife, because I admire what she does for us, and that feeling is different than anything. And I love that part about this relationship right now that I never had.
I would say the same, and the way I would describe it is, if you so a lot of people, they dream about this relationship that's the soulmate one, where everything clicks. The first problem with that, and I did seek that too when I was younger, and I think my partner did too. The problem with that is, again, you go into this realm of failure success, where you have something, but then when someone asks you, well, how come your relationship is so great? You go, I don't know, we just click. It's like this mysterious force. We just click. You know what happens to those couples? In 5-10 years, the click goes away.
Yeah.
They grow apart, life happens, they need to evolve their thinking, and they might evolve in different ways. The click goes away, then I don't know, something just clicks I don't know, we just grew apart. I don't know why. We just don't feel it anymore. They can't explain anything. They can't explain how it formed. They can explain how it degraded. That's the first problem. But if you start from scratch, I had to learn English from scratch, Jason. And I think I speak better English and I can teach English better than my partner who grew up in LA. Because I had to learn like the tiniest details of English. Same thing for relationships. You had to learn the tiniest details about relationships, and you can replicate it. And once you can replicate it, that's such a good feeling of confidence, where you don't need to keep one eye open at night, because I can replicate that every single day. That's fine. The second feeling that I have about this is the difference between happiness and pride. Let's say you inherited a successful business from your parents. You can feel happy about that, right? But you can't feel proud of it. For you to feel proud of something, you got to build something. You got to put your own blood, sweat, and tears into that thing. All right. So if now we have a relationship that we're not only happy with, but we can feel proud of, because we built it from the ground up. And I think that's part of the weird feeling of greatness, is I don't only get happiness, but I get pride. Do you feel that, Jason?
I do. And actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, because since the day I started rebuilding my relationship, I started the business basically the very same day. And it's been a challenge of all the same challenges, really. I mean, piecing it all together, all the things we talked about in the program, processes, farming, hunting, and then you got entropy, you got all the anxieties, the viruses, all these things, and they intertwine. And so I've been doing both of them simultaneously, and you feel all that. I mean, you really, like I do. I feel it all. I feel so proud of the fact that my wife can count on me. I feel so proud of the business where I'm at, even though it's nowhere where I want it to be. The relationship, the same thing. It's not even scratching the surface of where I want it to be. But I feel so proud that I was challenged by somebody who I believed in. When I seen it on YouTube, somebody who I talked to a couple times, and somebody who made me believe, even though I was hopeless. I think the very first time we talked, it's like, I just want to be a good co-parent. What I did to my wife, nobody recovers from. Nobody does.
Yeah.
And you convinced me then, like, hey, just do this stuff and don't be tethered to the outcome, because you may or may not. You told me, like, you may be with her, you may not be with her, but this is your best shot of whatever you want. You know, you want to be a co-parent, you want to be a friend, you want to be these things to her. You want to show her that, hey, you have nobody else in your life right now that you can count on. You know, people are supposed to be close.
Hey, sorry guys, we had to cut that video a bit because my dogs came in the room. So Jason, sorry for the intermission there, but repeat what the last thing you said.
Yeah, so I was just talking about, you know, the pride in the business and the pride in the relationship, and how, you know, meeting you, and you're like, you know, I didn't even have hope for the relationship. Just talking to you and your experience with other people that you dealt with was, you just can't be tethered to any outcome, because you don't know, because what you're about to go through is so explosive. It's so life-changing that people around you are going to recognize. And I remember those early conversations with you, like before I even joined, and there was a lot of emails back and forth, and, you know, a couple little tidbits, talking to Jared, and it was like, man, you guys have more hope for me in my relationship than I have for me in my relationship.
And I think I actually listened to our call when you signed on, and I said to you, and you said to me, I don't know how exactly you worded it, but you said, yeah, I'm just here to co-parent, to be a better co-parent. This is hopeless. And I told you, don't be afraid to aim high. Don't be afraid to aim higher, because, like, again, a lot of people don't realize level 3 is not the highest level. That's level 50. When you get to level 50, you're going to be very shocked at how much your life and your relationship, you can change as well. And again, I was right.
No, you're right. And, you know, just back to that, you know, it's amazing. Like, a year later, going through this program, just this morning, entropy wants to set in, viruses want to set in, and it's up to you every single day. You can either get into it or you can stop it, because it's human nature. Like, I truly believe now, going through this, like, it's just part of life. And if you allow it, your relationship's not going to continue climbing. It's going to start going back downhill. Your business is going to go downhill. Your happiness is going to go downhill, because every day there's something in your mind that is wanting to take that happiness away. There is something that's wanting to put doubt and fear and anxiety in your mind, and it's up to you to stop it. So how are you going to stop it every single day? If you don't, you have no chance. You really don't. Like you talk about, it's going to be good. You might find a relationship that clicks. You might find a job that makes you happy, but that's going to go away. You know, you can only love your boss or your coworker for so long.
Yeah. So let's talk about that entropy. Let's spend a minute there, because again, a lot of people's definition of what a happy relationship is one that has no issues. Like, somehow when people say, oh, we never argue, that could be either a really good thing or a really bad thing, right? It could be really good, meaning that, oh, problems are coming up, but we never argue about them because we talk about them. But it could also mean we don't even feel good bringing it up, so we just bury it. That's not good.
Yeah, that's what mine was. That's how ours started, was more of that. We just didn't talk about it until
we just didn't talk about it. Yeah. But the funny thing is, we always say entropy always exists. It's always a thing. And a lot of men hearing you describe, it's like, no, your job as the leader of the relationship is to take the entropy, to take the wrong things, the bad things that are happening, and reverse the feedback loop every single day. Like, you have to be on guard, not on guard, but on point every single day. You have to build that awareness and make it a part of you to do that. And a lot of people will say, I don't want a relationship like that. But what a lot of people don't realize, I think, is that's all relationships.
It's beyond the relationship. Today, it wasn't even about the relationship. It's life, my business. I've got 20 employees that started from nothing. All of a sudden, there's 20 employees who now, today, it was like, how am I going to make sure they're fed all winter, in the rainy season, the winter season? What kind of work am I going to go after? And it's like, okay, stop that, because that right there is going to affect my relationship. My processes are solid. I know the process to bring the jobs in and do that stuff. So get your mind right. Did you do your checklist? Did you do the things right? Because it's Saturday. And I don't need that affecting my relationship with my wife and kids, because that's who I am. when things are weighing on me, I wear it on my sleeve. And I don't need that to affect, I finally have 2 days to spend with my family. And I don't need that weighing me down, but that's might be typical. It might just be me. But those are the things I notice that affect my marriage. They affect my wife's happiness because she thinks it's about her. She thinks I'm not happy with her because I don't want to talk about those things. I don't want it to come into our marriage. And it has nothing to do with her. But that's going to lead to the next argument because she's going to be like, you're not loving me. You're not doing these things that we need for our relationship.
So this is the beautiful because you're saying here, not only are you're a systems thinker. That's what we call it in our program, right? A lot of people, they're reactive. No, they only care about the problem until when the problem comes, but they don't anticipate the problem. So the problem comes, they react, but we don't respond to what's going to happen. We don't strategize. We don't systems think. And you're thinking 10 moves ahead to say, if I let this happen, if I let this entropy set in, that's going to cause chain reactions down the line that will lead to something bad. That's, I'm like, as a coach, I'm so happy to hear that.
Well, it came from this program. I've read the system books. I've done those things. Yeah. And so playing poker years ago, I played for like 10 years. You're always moves ahead. You're constantly thinking, the different levels and the different stuff. But it never transferred to life. It never did until you start talking about the systems thinking. You're like, okay, what I do now is going to affect 6 months from now. What I do today is going to affect tomorrow. What I do now is going to affect lunchtime. My thoughts right now. So it all comes from these things that I'm still learning, because we talked about, like, I had to be on guard. I had to learn how to stop negative cycles. And I had to go through so much of that and just take that away to let her know she could have trust. Now I'm on the next phase, version 3 is here, and I'm just getting to the point where I really get to tackle, the other levels that are there that are in the program that talk about, from the mental standpoint, and how to, constantly raise your standards, constantly raising your standards in different areas. And so I'm excited about this portion of it now because I know that is going to be another portion of this great relationship. Like, she now is going to see this new version of me all the time because I get to challenge all my fears. I'm not on guard all the time. I'm not waiting to, it was system thinking where it was, okay, if I respond this way, she's going to respond this way. Here's how I'm going to handle it. And so my whole visualizations were built around stopping that negative cycle. What is she going to say when I say this? And how is my framework going to work so I respond in this way properly to build securities?
It becomes second nature.
Now we're a little bit further along where now it's like, okay, use those same processes, but let's help lift each other now. She's wanting to start these business ventures. I'm supporting her. That's the goal line that you talked about. How am I going to show that I'm supporting her? So now she gets something even better out of this. It's not just now she's like, I'm easier to be around. Now she has that support that she really needs. And it's exciting. Like, this is
it's a very exciting feeling. It reminds me of 2 quotes, right? That gets thrown a lot in the community. One is, you can ignore reality, but you cannot ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. And the very reality of life, it's entropy. Things do break down, things do go wrong. And you can ignore that, but you cannot ignore the consequences of that. The second thing also is, this one is not in the program, but people throw it around, and I love this one. Don't wish for a life that was easier. Wish you were stronger to deal with the life that is hard. I love that.
Yeah, I love them both.
Because this is exactly it. Is if you're thinking right now, oh, I don't want a relationship that's so much with so much entropy, dude, you can escape that. That is life. So don't pray for an easy life. Pray to get stronger. Or in this case, don't pray, but
I think you're right.
Follow the process.
We talked about it. So many people in the group have talked about it, and it wasn't. I was in the group for months before I think I read something by Mike Hurst, and it was talking about entropy. And I've been learning about entropy through the whole program, but something clicked, and I was like, man, you're right. That's every day. That's your car breaking down. That's the relationship breaking down, your communications breaking down, everything starts great and then it goes bad.
Yeah.
And so entropy has been like one of my favorite words over the last 9 months. Like it's been one of the things that I just constantly keep in my forefront, because the minute you accept that everything's going to break down, but you can maintain it and you can correct it, you can make it better, then you're on a better path. You just have to find the ways to do that for yourself. You know,
Yeah.
I'm still searching for the ways for myself. Everybody's going to have their own version, but I think that's huge. Once you accept that, you're on a different path. You
Or
have
like earlier when my partner walked in the middle of our interview, that's entropy right there. And
Yeah.
it's like, you either are so beginner that you have to force yourself to be okay with that, or it's just second nature. It's like, oh, it's just another thing's happening. Hey, can you close the door, please? Get the dogs out. Let's move on.
I was hoping
It's
you'd
just
invite her
effortless.
in so I could say hi and talk. I appreciate the time and so yeah, I mean it's just the way you handle it anymore.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to also touch base on why people cannot reverse this feedback loop like you have done really well. So the first reason we talked about, which we kind of implied in the conversation we had, is they blame character, they don't blame environment. And so once you do that, you know, your emotions, your paradigm is just going to lead you to really bad actions, right? A wrong diagnosis leads to the wrong treatments. Always. If you assign your partner's behavior to she's an a-hole, then you're going to act as if she's an a-hole, and she's going to act as if you think she's an a-hole, right? And it becomes a self-perpetual cycle. The second thing I think that is important is the tetheredness that we talk about. And you mentioned before this interview that a lot of people can't do this because a lot of people never realize just how much their behaviors, their thinking is affected by outside things. Tell me more about what you mean here.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, me personally is all I can speak for, but you know, it's paralyzing when you're tethered to another person's emotions and reactions and what you think they think about you, and you know, it creates your own life, it creates your own dynamic, and it creates that fear that doesn't allow you to go forward, that doesn't allow you to create positive momentum, because not only are you creating those reactions because that's all you see, but you're also creating the same dynamic for them to see. And so what I mean is, you know, when I was so tethered to losing my wife because of my children, and you know, I cared about our family so much, it created all the wrong ways to do things. When it was like, okay, pride was in my way for a lot of different reasons, and that stopped me from making so many changes throughout life. When the minute I swallowed pride and said, okay, this probably is something more that I can do, this probably is something, a big change that I need to make, and recognize that it's not who she is or who she wants to be or who this person wants to be, it's what they're getting from me. And so when you're 100% accountable for everything around you, and there's a book on that I read, and I forget, and it was by a Navy SEAL, and it's something about, you know, being total accountability I've read over the last year. And it resonated so much with this program too, because like, man, if you just want to point fingers and blame, then nothing in your life is going to change. But if you can be accountable for everything around you, and you can swallow that pride to say, you know, what is it that, okay, I'm not getting to point A, you're going to point B, I'm missing something, you know, what is it about point B that you like that I'm really missing? Help me understand. So at least you're looking at all angles. I think it just changes everything. And if you can't recognize what you're tethered to, then that's a problem. And if you can recognize that being tethered is a problem, then you can recognize that there's a lot of change that you can make. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. So I'm going to branch off to 2 points here, just 2 sub points on this one, because the things that a lot of people say, and you have children, and you're you're married, you have a long-term relationship, and you have a lot actually riding on your relationship because your business was also tied to your relationship big time. So if you lose a relationship, you lose the kid, you lose the kids, you lose part of the business, you lose the relationship, of course, you lose maybe money in the settlement. I mean, you stood to lose a lot here. And a lot of people would say, well, I can't untether because I care too much about my kids. I can't untether because I care too much about my business, about my wife, etc. But the thing that people don't get is the more you care, the more you should untether. Yeah. So the analogy that we give in the program is of athletes. We ask the question, do you really think you're the only one with an outcome that is important? How proud can you be if you think that? Do you think every athlete out there, like you look at every NBA player, right? If they don't make it to the NBA, they're in poverty, a lot of them. Same thing for boxers, same thing from a lot of athletes. They don't come from affluent families. So they have a lot riding on them. But if you're so tethered, if the outside forces influence you, outside pressures influence you, LeBron James will not be LeBron James. You cannot be clutch. You cannot be great. You cannot be perfect in your process. It's almost like if you're a golfer and you start thinking about the trophy before you win, you're going to choke. And the same thing in relationships. If you keep thinking about the outcome and the outcome makes you nervous, whatever it is, you're going to choke. You're going to do really bad things, right? So if you really care about the outcome, you better untether because that tetheredness will kill you.
Yeah. And I think me and a lot of others, they think that they mistake being untethered and a positivity with you're giving up. They're afraid to try it because their heart is so invested. I was, and that's why I had all this momentum going up, but then I sank because I was still tethered. I still could not stand the thought of losing my children, but it took me a while to realize that my only chance is to create a better version, and the only chance to create a better version is not to be tethered, because it's back to paralyzing me. It's back to doing all these things that are creating toxic problems for me. When if I could just think clear, like I love my kids, they love me, I love my wife, I know she loves me, I know my family loves me, I know all these things. But what do they expect from me? You talked about in the program at some point, and maybe version 2, I'm not sure version 3, but nobody wants to see somebody pouting and moping, beating themselves up over mistakes. Like, you made a mistake. How are you gonna bounce back? What are you gonna look like? What does she see or they see when they see you? And that's so critical. If you're tethered, you're gonna constantly have that defeated look on you, or you're going to be so high because you're so tethered to the way things are right now that you're going to be missing all the signs that
exactly. So tetherness can come in two forms. Either when the relationship is going badly, you also come down with that, or it could be the other way around, where relationship is going badly and now you feel super motivated. But the problem with that is, of course, when the relationship goes well again, your motivation goes down, which is what happened to you in the first time, where like, I don't need to do this anymore, right? And if you study every good leader, every good figure, important figure, powerful figure, whatever it is, they're always untethered. Because a good leader, imagine if a good leader is tethered to the emotional state of all his employees, right? Employees are sad and hopeless. They go, oh man, I don't know. I mean, you're in big trouble, right? You have to be the one. Outside forces can influence you. You influence outside forces. That's a definition of a leader. And to do that, you'd better untether, source your strength from within, and be able to inspire other people, right? And so the second misconception people have about untethering is it's not about just untethering. It's not just about letting go. It's reattaching yourself to a proven process.
I think
just to a proven process.
That's the thing that when I was new, you understand processes. Everything you do is a process. but you really understand processes. And I think that's the thing. You lose that hunter mentality, you focus on farming, and everything in life is farming. And once you recognize that process, that winning process, that you just have to have conviction, you have to have faith in it, you have to believe, and you also have to monitor that process. You have to make the changes. But I think that's the thing when you come into the program or anything you're doing, program or not, when you recognize that no matter what it is, it's a process. Whether you want to keep that awesome relationship that you just met, there's a process to it, or you want to rebuild it, or a business, you want to build it, there's a process to it. You want to excel in any job you have, there's a process. And just showing up isn't enough, because there's somebody else who has a better process right next to you, or right in front of you, or right behind
Right
you.
in front of you.
Yeah, and so I think that that's the thing. Like, what is your process? I know my process is something that I can't miss for a day, because my mind just consumes me. I have too many people I care about, and the thought of failing them just consumes me to another level. So I have to be ahead of that every single day. And part of that process, the 75% of that process every morning, is focused on my family, because that's what matters to me and this life. And right now, I feel like I'm in a dream. So it's not like the first time where, like, oh man, she's ready to go forward. It kind of reverted back to where this is my wife, this is my life, she's not going to leave. Now it's like, my wife has her own life. She deserves to have her own life and make her own choices. So I better be on top of my game every single day, because this is what it's about. I have a business.
It's forever. It's a lifestyle.
But yeah, this is what I'm going to rest my hat on. This is what life is about, and to me, and it could be different for other people, but this is, when I look back, this is important for me. This is the moment in my life where I want to look back and feel like, man, I did something great for my children. I gave them a role model. I showed them what you should do no matter what the outcome. And hopefully I look back and say, hey babe, we made it, 40 years, 30 years, and we didn't have a chance. And we get to look back, and it's still a growth year after year after year. So.
Yeah. I think the picture that you're painting here of what a good untethered person looks like is, it could be storming, up and down, whatever it is, you're still doing the same things. I'm still going to do the same process every single day. And it's the same thing for my business, right? It doesn't matter if we have a good sales day, bad sales day, good month, bad month. Clients are having difficult moments, good moments, a lot of wins. I don't care. What I do every day is exactly the freaking same thing. But you got to make sure. That's the hardest thing, but you also got to make sure, right, that the process you pick is the right process. You can't just pick some random process and be consistent. Being consistent with the wrong process is actually going to get you in the wrong direction faster. So you got to pick the right process. And once you find the right process, stick with it, and stick with it no matter what the outcome is.
I agree 100%.
So Jason, I know we're at time. I think we're just over an hour now, but last minute advice for people who find themselves in the same position as you. There's a lot of people who are listening to this who resonate with your story because they're probably there as well. Well, what advice would you give them? What's the next step they should take?
So if you're in the group, I think that you understand and you see a lot of the posts and the way the group has grown. I mean, I don't know how many.
And you're talking about the paid group, right? The paid
So
program
group. That group, then you hear a lot about consistency, and you hear a lot about just trusting the process, and that's the thing. Find the right process, just tweak it, see what's working, do your visualizations, do those things that create that internal shift, and just keep doing it every day. And you talk about that hair dryer and the ice room effect and all that, and it's something that you have to just, is the temperature rising? Is the climate temperature overall rising? Is it getting worse? And that way you make your tweaks and your changes. But I think that, number one, you have to find a way not to be tethered. You have to find a way to improve yourself every single day. And I think if you improve yourself every single day, that's hard to look past. And you start gaining this confidence, and you start gaining these the recreate things. And once you start gaining that, then all of a sudden everything starts getting easier. And then you can start branching out and doing a little bit more each and every day for yourself and your partner. But, you know, I think don't be typical. Don't be average. Everybody, we're all average. We're all typical. Try to do something a little different. Everybody you talk to in my situation is going to say, you guys need divorce. You need to be apart. Do better for your kids by being with others. Try something different. Try to just focus on yourself and how you can change yourself, and see what happens there. Be accountable for everything around you. If you're having a bad day, you're probably having a bad day because of something you did, not something somebody else did.
I think
they might have screamed at you, but how did you react to it?
That's an important takeaway too. I don't care if you think your relationship is hopeless, beyond saving, you're going to be divorced, whatever it is. It doesn't excuse you from ever discovering yourself. And just like we said, people who join this program, they initially think they're not that bad. Until they join the program, they realize, oh my God, there's so much I need to learn. And once you realize how much you need to learn, you have just raised your glass ceiling in a way, right? So a lot of people think, oh, I realized how bad I am. They think it's a bad thing. No. If you realize you're finally aware how much behind the curve you are, you have just raised your glass ceiling, which is a beautiful thing because you're going to get there eventually, right? And it doesn't excuse you from ever doing that. And do that, grow, raise your glass ceiling and grow to that glass ceiling, the new glass ceiling, and let's see from there. And you'll be shocked at what you see. That's it.
That's it. You're going to be shocked. I'm shocked. And the truth is, no matter what happens, I'm a better person, and I can be a better person for those around me. And I think that's the thing, like, create that avenue for yourself. And I have no regrets, zero regrets. I've watched this thing so many times, I've done it so much. And again, I'm so excited to do it again because now it's another level. I'm going on to another level. So, I appreciate you, Geoffrey, and the program, the time you put into it. And
I appreciate your existence and your presence in that group as well. I mean, a lot of people look up to you as a beacon, as like a sensei, like I said again, whenever you post. I mean, your post just got so much attention, which is amazing. So Jason, thank you again for sharing your insights here and sharing your experience here as well. For those of you guys who want to dive deeper into the principles that we talk about in this interview, I'm going to put a link down below to watch the masterclass. The masterclass will be about an hour and a half. At the end of the masterclass, we'll show you how you can submit your application for the program as well if you're interested. And once you submit once you submit your application, we'll take a look at it. If it goes through, we'll have a member of my team shoot you a call, or we're going to have this through a Zoom call. And that's basically the application process. So if you want to apply, go to that masterclass. At the end, we'll tell you how to apply. Jason, again, thank you so much. It's been an honor having you here. I hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you, Geoffrey. I hope you do too. And thank you the same. I really appreciate you guys and you for all you do.
Yeah.
So,
signing out.
Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Cheers, buddy. Bye.